Yes, yes. What's up, everybody? It's your man, Willie Green, producer, engineer. We're live here in Brooklyn at my studio, The Greenhouse, and we're here with Plugin Alliance today for Mixed with Mega. That means we're going to mix a record using only the plugins in the Mega Bundle. And that's not that much of a limitation, y'all. That's actually pretty easy. There's pretty much anything you might need in a mix right there in the Mega Bundle for you. They got EQs, compressors, saturation all day. You know I love that. Reverb, special effects. Anything you might need is right there in the Mega Bundle. So it's just a matter of picking and choosing what you need for your record. So let's take a look at this record that I've got. I've got a new joint here called Born Ready, partnered up with my man Curly Castro, wonderful MC out of Philadelphia. And I made the beat, he wrote the bars, we made this record. Let's do the mix. So to start, we're just gonna take a quick spin through the session, see what we're dealing with. First glance, we got some drum tracks, a little bit of a drum loop thing going on. We've got bass, some arpeggiation, some synths, some bells, explosions, because you know I like that too. And all the sounds also come from the Mega Bundle. I use the Mega Sampler, I use the Lion synth. You really don't have to go too far outside the Mega Bundle to make a record from top to bottom, and that's what we're doing here today. All right. Then we've got one lead vocal, we got a little bit of dubs, some ad-libs in the verses. And then we've got a hook that we stacked up a few times. Castro came in, we recorded all the vocals here in the greenhouse. So I know they're all crispy, sounding good, and ready to mix. Let's take a listen. We'll start at the end of the first verse. We'll hear some of the hook and see what we're dealing with. This is Born Ready, Willie Green, Curly Castro.
From the ghost call on Shalimar, Salamanca almost got the ghost of us as a car. Sweet, sweet back, badass song at the salad bar. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready. Yo, Rucker reinvent and 1 second gen fest. Caught the jealousy when Occam was the document. Rocking it, big ups Pat the rocking them. I was scammed too when I was rocking them.
All right, so for all my Hoops fans, you probably recognize the reference. Born Ready is the nickname of former NBA star Lance Stevenson. So if you know your Hoops, you're already at home here. There's lots of other basketball references, some street ballers, Pat the Rock, Castro and myself are both big Hoops guys. So that kind of threads through a lot of our music. But let's dive into the mix portion of this. Let's get into the nuts and bolts, into the details, shall we? Everything in the beat is kind of built around this arpeggiator thing here that we have, again, coming from the Mega Sampler, a lot of dope sounds in there. And let's just really take a look. I'm going to solo real fast so we can see just what that is isolated. So pretty straightforward. We're going to want to take care, a lot of that sound is going to kind of live in the same frequency range a bit as the vocals will. So we just want to make sure, as we're dealing with anything in a record, we're listening to this arpeggiator right now, but our main focus on any record that we do, if there's a vocal in that record, the vocal is the most important thing in your record. That's where the story is. That's where all your basketball references are. That's the focus of everything. That's the part you sing along to. So we always want to make sure that as big as we get everything else, we're making room for the vocal. So let's see what we're doing on this arpeggiator. We've got the super dope Kirchhoff EQ that just dropped not too long ago. If you haven't checked it, please pause this and go check your Kirchhoff EQ right now. It's fabulous. And really what we're doing here, let's solo the arp and let's also solo the lead vocal. So you'll see I'm making a little bit of room here, kind of where things get boxy in that 300, 400 range. And I don't want too much buildup in the record there. So if I have to choose between that and the vocal, I'm going to notch out of the sample between the ARP as like a sample here and let the vocal be nice and big and full. So let's see what we're doing with the two of those.
Negro with an attitude, driving like I'm Fanny Lou. Bitches brew concocted for the gull, it doesn't matter who. Flatbush was my avenue, sellers on the avenue. Self-help, 5%, always read as radical. LSD sabbatical.
So just in that little bypass, you see when I bypass that band, there starts to become a buildup there. We're starting to kind of mask some of Castro's voice. Unacceptable. We're here for the raps in this, no matter how nice my beat is. We're here for the raps. So I'm just making a little bit of space and just pushing that back, right?
Hunt was on, XL back to Avalon. Sitting stone silence versus the children of one Oberon. Maya and Baraka, see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a giddy.
So that's where kind of the presence and the transients and like the kind of, I don't know why I keep doing this, the tactile part of that arpeggiator is. So I want the definition there. And so, I'm boosting a decent amount up around 4K just to make sure that those transients and the detail on that comes through. That part is not colliding with Castro's voice in the same way. So I don't mind building that up a little bit more there for some definition. Let's hear both of these in context now with the full beat.
Was on, XL back to Avalon. Sitting stone silence versus the children of one Oberon.
Bypass.
Maya and Baraka, see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a Gideon. I pity son. Elvin
Back in.
Howl at the moon for the Valinor. Mental 4 pound at the waist for nickel avatar. Minded of the group.
So just that change and not affecting the vocal, just affecting this arpeggiator made the vocal feel like it was far back when that EQ was out. And when I brought the EQ in, it's like Castro took a step closer to the mic. He stepped into focus more and not even messing with the vocal yet, right? Because mixing is like a puzzle and everything has got to fit together for all to work right. There's only so much headroom. There's only so much space there. And so we need to prioritize what's the most important thing. And that thing is generally the vocals. I don't want to lose the raps because I want to boost up parts of this arpeggiator. Arpeggiator is cool, but it's not the lead vocal. So we need to make some concessions there, right? So along with that EQ, we've got a little bit of unfiltered audio Byome on here. Let's A/B that and see.
Was on, XL back to Avalon. Sitting stone silence versus the children of one Oberon. Maya and Baraka, see them dancing in obsidian.
All right, so that we're getting a little bit of delay from the Byome, right? And I like the Byome because it's not just a straight up, here's some delay on your thing, splash, here we go. You can manipulate it a lot. Everything is based off modulation. You see I've got this patch cable here, so I got an LFO, and that's changing the amount of delay that I have going on. It's subtle, and we'll listen to it again, but just enough to give this pretty standard track that goes through most of the beat just like that, to give it some internal motion and some internal character, so it's not just arpeggiator for 3 minutes, right? I want to give that a little bit of action within itself. So let's hear that again. So just a little bit of delay, and you hear when I stop that little bit of trail. It's not enough that it's going to start to blur our whole record, but it's just enough to give it some movement, give it a little bit of rub when it kind of rubs against itself, and then to vary a bit as it goes, just for some life within what could be a kind of static part. And so the last thing that we've got on this ARP track, this arpeggiator track, is the unfiltered audio Needlepoint. When Needlepoint first dropped, I was like, do we need another vinyl noise plugin? Like, that's out there. I got sample banks. Sometimes I'll even add more vinyl noise just on like a little audio sample, just right in the record if I need it. Do we need this? I want to publicly apologize to the internet right now. I was wrong. This is not just some vinyl noise here or there. This is a super full-fledged production tool, really. Sure, we can add a little noise, a little grime, but it does a whole lot. I'm an old school cat. I started sampling vinyl, sampling records, like a lot of folks out there, and I wanted to give it a little bit more of an aged sound, right? Castro's spitting that fire on here, and I got to set him up by giving him something grimy to rock over. Pretty clean sounds are great for other records, but this one needs to be a little bit on the grimy side, right? So we're gonna de-age this a little bit, and we're adding in some dust and some noise just to give it that sample feel. But then, very importantly, down here at the bottom, this is set on envelope, right? If this is set on constant, we get that record noise consistently, whether we're playing, sitting here, walking down the hall, whatever. And that can be a little bit annoying. Also, I just want the sound to happen when this track is in. If I have this on transport and I start from the beginning when the track is not playing, that sound is going to come on at any point that I've pressed play or pressed record. And that's adding in unnecessary noise into the record when I don't want it. I only want it on this synth. So if we go to envelope, now this noise is only going to play when the signal is running through the plugin, and that's what we need. I'm gonna bypass this and let's hear just straight up plain ARP sound. Right, so it's cool. It's a nice sound. But this, we got a little more dust in there. We got some texture in there. That now this synth sounds like it came from somewhere. Might have came out of my closet, might have came out of somebody's dusty stacks in some record store somewhere. I don't know. But now we got a little more texture to that, and I like that. So just a little something with that needlepoint, just to add in a little bit of grit to sometimes things that might be a little too clean. Let's run through the rest of the synths real quick. The bulk of the beat melodically is that part there. We've got this pad that's happening further down. So we've got, again, our Kirchhoff EQ. It's giving us, not notching out some spots that we don't want and getting a little definition up at 2K. Let's hear that.
Hey yo, Negro with an attitude, driving like I'm Fanny Lou. Bitches brew concocted for the gull, it doesn't matter.
Right, so the solo will bypass real fast. So there's a few important things happening with this EQ curve. First, anything down below 50 hertz, sometimes pads or synth sounds may have some stuff down there. We don't need that in this record. This pad is not what's holding down the bottom. We've got a big kick drum and we've got a lot of bass. We've got a very large bass. Those things are handling these super low bottom end frequencies. The pad's not helping, and so it's just in the way, right? We want a clear room for our low end. That's how we get that size. It's not always about boosting all the low end, but clearing out space from what doesn't need that real estate down there. So we're getting that out. We're getting out some of the mud frequency around 200 hertz or so. And a little bit of that boxiness around 500, and similar to what we did with the ARP sound, we're going to leave that space there for Castro to rhyme through. That's going to be kind of a thick part of his voice, so we're not going to mask that. We're going to make room for it. And then a little bit of definition up top, and we're just going to ease off the very top. We don't want to sound too synthy. Let's hear this. And yeah, we got a little grime happening. We're about to get to that in a second. So bypassed. So it's pretty subtle, but when we're in conjunction with everything else, start bypassed.
Hey yo, Negro with an attitude, driving like I'm Fanny Lou. Bitches brew concocted,
right? And just some of those frequencies, and we see them building on the display. Those frequencies start to build up a little bit, so we just want to chill them out, right? I like the sound, but we want to rein it in. We want it to fit in that puzzle that we're making, right? So after the Kirchhoff, we're back with Byome again from the homies, Unfiltered, you already know. And let's just A/B this and see. This is to give a little more movement, some shake, and also some of that grit that I like to it. Let's bypass. It's a very nice normal pad that will be really rad for someone who wants a very normal pad, but you know I'm not like that. So now, all right, we got some filter stuff going on. We've got a little bit of sample and hold noise stuff happening. I just want to give some texture there. Again, for me, things are about texture and about feel, not just about frequencies. So I had to put a little sauce on. And then for the most part in this session, I was going with the AMEK 9099 console. There's so many nice console emulations from Brainworks in the bundle. uh, this is just the one I kind of gravitated toward. I tried some different things, and what's dope about the amount of consoles they have in here is you can mix and match, or you can keep them all the same as if you're using one hardware console or however you want to do it. In this case, I was in an AMEK mood that day and was just sounding right to me. Check them all out, see what's right to you. If it sounds right to you, it's right. So in this case with the AMEK, I'm really not doing a lot. I think I may have even just put it on most of the channels I was working on. We're adding a little bit of distortion from the THD over here. Got a little bit of the V gain on. Again, just texture stuff, and I'm doing it in increments in different places. I could put it in one thing and just crank it on the Looptrotter or something like that. But sometimes a little bit here and a little bit there adds up to more than just cranking one knob of one plugin, right? That's why people work in serial, one after another, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then you're gonna get there in a nice, pleasing way. So just a little bit of flavor from the AMEK, nothing crazy, right? And then below that, we've got synth that comes in. So completely dry, the synth. We've got a filter thing that's going on. This one I believe came from Lion. Relatively straightforward, but we got to do it. So we start with unfiltered audio fault. This has got a little bit of almost a wah-wah effect on it, right? We're using this frequency shifter just to get a little movement in there, and that's being fed from an LFO. So it's an automated movement to it, and I kind of just set the speed on that, and I'm just letting it rock, right? So some movement within that synth. And then we've got our Looptrotter, which we're going to come back to more in detail later on, and some other stuff. But to give it some drive, trying out saturations, seeing what I like. There's a lot of saturation and distortion plugins in the bundle. And that just means you got to go through and pick your flavors. It's like Baskin Robbins. You might be in the mood for Rocky Road today. You might be in the mood for I don't know, cookies and cream, or for Looptrotter, whatever your flavor is. So we've gotten to that. This is an underutilized joint, under-discussed joint in the bundle, the subsynth. This subsynth is, I use this a lot just to, when I really want to get my subwoofer to work, when I want to make sure that the speakers in your truck or your Jeep or your Honda Civic, whatever you drive, are really rattling and really banging. I'll get there and I'm adding sub frequencies down low. So when this thing comes in, I want it to feel like, yo, this is some shake, this is some earth shaking stuff. I know we've got the bass, but I want to also give it a little bit of push with this. But this is a special effect, This comes in just certain spots throughout the song, and I want to give it that cinematic feel, that rumble, that Lord of the Rings, Sauron is marching on you type stuff. Let me get that bottom. So we'll bring that in, and then we've got Kirchhoff, and we're doing a similar type of dip in the mids. I don't want it to get too mucky down there in the low mids at 300, that muddy range. And then we've got something happening here. And we're going to jump over to the bass track to discuss that a little bit more because that's where that's most present. Let's go halfway into the verse and let's just see what's happening with the bass. The same thing I'm doing on the synth pad, I'm doing on this bass here. So this will be a better display of it.
I see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a Gideon. I pity son, Elvin Wolf howl at the moon for the.
So that's a big bass. And if you just look at the waveform alone, you see there's an attack. We got the transient, and these are just whole notes. You know, this is not like a funky James Jamerson bass line. This is just give them the bottom and let it sit there and rumble, right? So we've got our bass, but we got that big kick drum too. Well, how are we going to get them to fit together? If low end is like real estate and everybody can't live all in the same crib, how do we get enough room for the big kick that is rumbling through this thing and also this huge bass and the synth pad? Well, let's open up our friend Kirchhoff. And what's dope about the Kirchhoff, it's not just a regular degular EQ, you boost, you cut, you call it a day. It's also a dynamic EQ, which means that if the frequency goes above a certain threshold, just like a compressor, it's going to reduce that frequency band according to however it's set. But the Kirchhoff also accepts a sidechain input. And so both on the bass track and on that synth track that we looked at, I'm sending the kick drum to the input of the side chain. And I'm using that side chain to duck everything in this band, right? So when the kick hits, everything below 56.936 hertz is going to dip. So when the kick hits, the super bottom of the bass gets out of the way just for a second to let that punch through, and then it comes back, and you time the release of that of the dynamic so it doesn't feel janky and super wobbly. So just time it out so it's a smooth transition. Let's hear that together.
I see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a Gideon. I pity son, Elvin Wolf howl at the moon for the Valinor. Mental 4 pound at the waist from the avatar. Minded.
Right, so every time the kick hits, I don't want the detail on the top end of the bass to go away. I just want to make enough room in that sub region for the kick to occupy for a second, and the kick leaves, bass is back. Then kick comes back in, the bass ducks. So we're going back and forth, making that room, utilizing all of our low frequency bandwidth down there, but when necessary, so everybody can kind of be as big and diesel as possible, but at their own time, right? So that's a nice way to get your kick and any kind of low frequency stuff that may be down there to spread out, right? So we want the cinematicness of that synth pad being nice and deep down there, but within its place.
LSD sabbaticals make us question all the norms. Rightly take it back to cuneiform. Dutton said the hunt was on. Exhale back to Avalon. Sitting stone silence versus the.
All right, so let's jump forward now into the chorus and let's just look a little bit what we have going on. So leading up in there, halfway through the first verse, we get these bells and, just belling around, nothing too crazy.
I see them dancing in obsidian. Have your cake and eat it like a Gideon. I pity son, Elvin Wolf howl at the moon for the Valinor. I see them.
We've got our AMEK channel on there again. Adding in a lot of the THD, but that's mostly it. I like the sample, mostly how it came in. Again, the bell sample came from, it's a loop or something that came from the Mega sampler. And, just finessing it a little bit. I didn't need to change the sound a whole bunch, so I didn't. Great power comes great responsibility. A very famous Spider said that one time. And just because we have all these plugins doesn't mean we have to use every plugin on every single track, right? If it's sounding right, it's right. Leave it and spend your time focusing on something else. You don't have to overdo everything just because you have that capability. So we've got a little bit of bells going on, chiming in. We've got our explosion track because that's the kind of person I am.
Ready.
It's not a deep explosion, but you know, something to imply just a little bit up back there. We've got this sample track here. Just whatever sound that is, some kind of wah clavinet guitar type thing. I don't know. It sounded cool, so we put it in, and we're just sending that to a quarter note delay. Um, and then our synth and our pad is back. And I mean, that's the beat. Let's look at the drums a little bit, though. I know I said we're gonna come back. I won't lie to you. We're gonna come back to the drums. Let's take a listen. Let's just see what's really popping with these drums here. So I'm gonna solo just my drum bus. All right, so you know we're banging. So on the kick, if you look at our send section already, you see the pad, the bass, the synth, all of those, all these sends here, those are going to side chains. So I can duck that sub when I need to let that kick really, really blow out there. So we've got that. We've got a Focusrite channel strip, just happened to go here. You know, we're doing a little bit of compression here. Right, a little bit of compression just to tighten that up. Quick attack, pretty quick release there, and just, you know, grabbing a little bit, put it right forward. We're filtering off a little bit of the very top end. I don't, you know, these drums and the verses, I'm kind of going a little bit more lo-fi. If we go back to top of the first verse, the kick on the snare, a little bit soft on the top, you know, it's just kind of the vibe I'm going for with this one. Right, and that's why in the chorus, that's where we get snare 2, it's a brighter snare to complement that other one. So I'm just taking the top edge off of you know, so adding a little bit of attack at around 1.5. We are taking a little bit out in the low mids, around 300 again. Wanna keep that area neat and tidy. And we're actually even rolling off a little bit of the very bottom because the thing was so huge, we just had to rein it in. Remember, we're looking for good, strong, consistent bass, not just woofy speakers for the sake of having woofy speakers, right? So that, and then we got a little bit of a transient designer, a lot of actually transient designer on here, adding some attack and really chopping down the sustain on that kick. The bass is so long, I don't need a long kick drum. I need something that's going to hit and get off and hit and get off, right? Right, just want to tighten it just a skosh, okay? The snare drum, we're back. We got our AMEK channel, so we're doing our filtering here. We're taking out the super lows of the snare that might be there. We got some compression going on. We've got a little bit of EQ, opening up the top, actually just a skosh, even though we're trying to control things. Just a little bit, so let's hear. Right, so we're smacking this compressor pretty hard, you know, we're hitting around 10 dB of gain reduction, which is a very lot for me. I don't always squash that hard, but I want it just to tight, "Pah," not a crack, not a thud, just that "pah" that we're getting off the snare. And then to really make that point, really drive it home, again, we're back with Needlepoint. I told you it's not just about vinyl noise, right? So yeah, we got some dust, some noise on there for sure. We're aging it. But down here in the bottom left of Needlepoint is where the real money is made. This compressor on Needlepoint is the real McCoy, y'all. I'm telling you, I've been using it on so many of my drums lately. It's just got this smack and this grit to it that I'm telling you is not in a lot of other plugins. You need the Needlepoint just for that. This compressor is worth the price of admission alone, right? Let's hear it. That snare sounds weak and piddly and soft. And then we bring in some of our noise, our dust, and that compression. And also, over here, we're detuning that snare just a hair. We're just dropping that down a little bit just to give it a little scrunch face to it. Right? So that's just, now we're getting that that I'm looking for. And it's that needlepoint compressor doing this job. Wonderful. And finally, we've got just a loop here. Right? So that's a loop. It's coming from the mega sampler. And, you know, I come from a loop drums type place, type of background where, yeah, we've got our kick and our snare doing their stuff. But when it's really time to get everything cranking and really hoofing like that, a drum loop chopped in there, and that you see it sounds choppy, that's on purpose. That's like if I went to a record and I chopped out a drum break from somebody's funk record from the 60s or 70s and I put it in my beat. That's the idea here. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm just sampling the mega sampler and I'm chopping it up and I'm putting it in with my drums so we get that size. So let's hear the drums all together.
Like I'm laying Stevenson, you already ready. Born ready, like I'm laying Stevenson, you already ready.
All right, so that mostly covers our beat. We're doing, you know, some other stuff. We've got, I showed you the EQ, the Kirchhoff on the bass. We're using the BX saturator because I wanted a multi-band saturator for the bass. This bass line is pretty low. You know, we're saving all that real estate down there in the bottom so we can get busy. But it's important to remember when you're dealing with low-end stuff, there are a lot of bass challenge systems out in the world and very much in play with what we listen to, whether it's somebody's cell phone or maybe some earbuds or a Bluetooth speaker that might be on somebody's shelf while they do dishes or whatever it is. We want to make sure that our bass translates and really rings out on any system that it's played through. And so saturation helps with that a lot. Not necessarily even down at the bottom, but what we want to do is we want to emphasize some of the higher overtones and textures in the bass that are going to be reproduced by these bass challenge systems to let the listener's ear know where the real bottom sits, right? We got to let them know the bottom is down here, and when you put it on in the whip, you're going to get it, but wherever you listen, you know where the bass is. We've got some texture there so you understand. So boosting the high mids, the low mids a little bit with this XL, and just to get some drive on that. So when I listen on the little joints, my bass still comes through nicely. And then because if some saturation is good, more saturation is better. We're throwing it through this Looptrotter, which really, it's a super nice, super flexible thing. And anything that has a magic knob that actually sounds magical when you crank it, I'm on board. So we're going to go over to my mixer window for a second. All of our drums are coming down. We are also hitting the Looptrotter on that. Just not a ton of drive, but just tapping it. And then last thing on the drums, this thing right here, the Lindell, the SBC. It's based off of a very famous, very popular old compressor. And there's some other sauce in here. It just sounds great. It's instant punch on your drums. If your drums are not smackulating the way that you need them to, open up this SBC, put it on your drums, make your fortune, and shoot me an email or something. Hit me on Twitter and just say, Green, you were right. The drums are smacking crazy because of the Lindell. I'll know. Just say, Green, you were right.
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready.
I mean, there's no question. It's night and day. I got the nuke button on and, you know, punching it, and I'm dialing it back a little bit to let some of the original come through. The sidechain high pass, I've got that rolled off a decent bit up to around 130 to make sure that my kick drum is still kicking where it needs to be, and just putting that real smack on there. All of my instruments are going through one more example of the needlepoint, one more instance of the needlepoint, and using the compression here just to kind of put a little glue on them, a little kind of funky glue the way that needlepoint does. That's just for my sounds, my samples, my pads, and whatever, just to give them that last little bit of, what record you sample off of this? None, right? So that's what we have going on instrumentally. Let's hop over to these vocals for a second. Let's take a listen. I'm not going actually super crazy with Castro's vocals here. They were well recorded, I'd like to say. Pat myself on the back for a sec. Recorded them here in my booth back here in the corner, and just doing a little touch on them. Let's see what we're doing with this AMEK. So I'm filtering. There's not going to be anything useful in Castro's voice under 136, and any kind of rumble or anything that might be in there, let's get it out and never have to worry about it again. So we're filtering that. We're just using the compressor here. We are taking off a little bit on the very top end. And again, being very careful in that boxy range around 500. And that's mostly what's happening here. Let's take a listen.
Rucker reinvent and 1 second gen fest caught the jealousy when Occam was the document. Rocking it, big ups pat the rocking them. I was scammed too when I was rocking M. Cage was a so M was just the opposite. Figure that. Shia Luther A. B-side not as prominent. Throw it up to terror while throwing up was Donovan. Oppenheimer working for the ops just like Alleman.
Right, just some tonal shaping in his voice. Not a lot, but it's, you know, enough that it's necessary for him. And then this little gem, the Lindell 902, the De-Esser, just to make sure that our sibilants, I like a nice, clear, bright vocal, but we don't want to shred up anybody's eardrums, you know? So just a little bit, taking a little bit off with that, just to make sure that we're clean.
Rucker reinvent and 1 second gen fest caught the jealousy when Occam was the document. Rocking it, big ups pat the rocking them. I was scammed too when
I'll be rapping along my own songs. You know, and so that same thing is happening on the dub track. So just for a little nomenclature, if you're not a hip hop producer, or if your slang is different in other places in New York, we call these dubs, where they emphasize a line that's in the lead vocal just by layering over it. I tend to put a little bit of delay on the dubs so they ring out. Think about if you're at a rap show, there's one person rapping and she's spitting, and then their hype person's right there with them and just layering in on top of certain lines for emphasis. That's the dub track, right? So that's what we have here. Pretty much same settings, a little bit of delay just to splash it out to the sides on its emphasis. And, you know, that's really it. Lastly, we've got the hook. And it's a hype hook, you know, it's not super wordy. It's the same phrase. I always wanted it super hype, right? The whole idea is born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson. You already, you know, it needs to be hype. If I'm like, you already, you need to already know what, you know, how I'm getting down, how Castro's getting down. So we layered it up. We got about 6 stacks on it. And panning wise,
born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson. You already ready.
All right, so we'll solo. I've got 2 of them in the center. These top 1 and 2 are just right down the center. And all of these, because I liked what we did with the lead vocal, I just copied and pasted that channel, right? So I took my AMEK, I put it across all of them, that De-Esser, just so we didn't have any issues. I just put it across all of them, and I'll adjust, you know, certain things to make sure they blend right, but I'm just starting with the same standpoint because I had Castro record all of it on the same mic, same vocal chain, same booth, same day, all of that. So I'm just taking that initial idea and applying it to the rest of the chorus. So we've got 1 and 2 right down the middle.
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready.
Okay, and we got a little bit of delay going on. So we've got down here my chorus track. On some lines we have an eighth note, some lines we have a quarter note delay. Both of these, man, I really do love that unfiltered. We got the unfiltered going on, just instant delay. Very simple. I just need a simple delay for this. So we've got our eighth note over here. We've got our quarter note. We've got a little bit of feedback on the quarter, so that rings out, and a little jitter on the eighth note just to give it a little shimmy, just to give it a little something there, right?
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready.
Right, so just nice vibes. Then we've got our sides. So each side has 2 stacks of the same performance. So we've got 4 total on the sides. First, gonna add these 2.
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready.
Right, he's got a little more of an accent on that one. He leans into a different part of his voice. So we put that on the sides, and then we add 2 more layers of that.
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready. Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready.
And with the beat,
Born ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you all ready. You ready? Yo, Rucker reinvent and 1 second gen fest.
all right. So there's a little other sauce going on in the vocal. Let's jump to that second verse real quick. Instead of using a reverb on rap vocals, a lot of times I'll use a slap delay. It implies space the way that a reverb has space, but it doesn't use up all of the real estate. Like a reverb is giving you space. I want to imply space with my slap delay. Just let you know, Castro's here. He's in a location. He's not just in like an anechoic chamber, which sounds weird, but I don't want them long tails and all that kind of stuff like you might put on a singer singing a ballad. This is a rap record with more staccato, rapid fire vocals, and so a long verb is not going to be appropriate for that. So we sent it to, again, instant delay, real fast, and just the 16th, just to get a little something on there, and then we are EQing that with the Kirchhoff, right? Don't be afraid to EQ your effects returns. A delay might sound awesome by itself, but in context, it may not actually fit the record. Go ahead and EQ that thing. Don't be shy, right? So Castro's got a little bit of nasal in his voice. I don't want to emphasize that with my slap delay and with my space around it. So I'm ducking around 2K. And then that mud, and then also any spare low frequencies, I don't want getting into my sides and my width of my vocal. So we've got that rolled off.
Negro with an attitude, driving like I'm Fanny Lou. Bitches brew concocted for the gullet, doesn't matter who. Flatbush was my avenue, sellers on the avenue. Self-help, 5%, always
right. So when that EQ is in, the slap almost goes away. I want that to be felt more than heard. You know what I mean? I just want you to feel that he's somewhere, not hearing, oh, listen to all the damn reverb. And then it's not that record. I just want you to feel that he's in a space, right? So that's going there. The chorus vocals are going there a little bit, and just to give us a sense of width to it. And finally, all of my vocals, I have all these subgroups down here. So in orange, we have drums go there. Subs is going to be bass, or if I had 808s, anything like that lives there. Music is everything that's not drums or bass. Apologies to my drummers, my bass players, but for the lack of a better term. Lead vocals, backgrounds, which the dubs are going to go to in this case, and then the chorus vocals go to the chorus. All of my instruments, so in this case, my drum bus, my subs, and my music all go to the instrument bus. Makes sense. My vocals all go to the Vox Bus, but here I'm doing something to it. And the new heat, literally, it's called the Oven. That's from my man Mayor Applebaum, and this thing is really the truth. I'm using and I use look at my knobs. I'm not going super crazy cranking everything up, but it gives some warmth as it should. It's the Oven. It gives some size. It has a sizzle knob if you need that, if you want that. You see, I like it. Got a little bit of that there. And I love a plugin that has unique nomenclature and unique names on the knobs. Like we all know threshold. You set your threshold and when it goes above this, like all that's very cool, and I rock with that. But I love a plugin that makes me turn a knob and listen and see what it's doing and see how I feel about it. Right? Everything is not like that. If I know exactly what to expect from a knob, I'm gonna do it and maybe not even listen in as intently as I should, right? But if I had to think, okay, the mid burn knob, do I need more of that? I need to really think and listen what's happening when I turn this mid burn knob. That engages me more. That makes me really perk up my ears and pay even that little bit more attention to what's happening there. So I love a plugin. I love a piece of hardware, whatever, with just some unique names for the parameters, just to focus me in a little bit more, make me pay attention. So we got that on the vocal bus. And then on my mix bus, not anything too crazy. I got the Elysia Alpha, excellent compressor, and I'm just taking off a little bit of the transients. When I compress on my mix bus, it's in serial, and I'm not doing a lot. This, let's take a look. This is just going to be, jump to the chorus. This is
Ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready.
Right. So I'm not at any point even taking off 2 dB of gain. It's just to kind of catch those transients, make sure that we're all tucked in there. Remember, I'm kind of going for a tight snare there and just kind of catching the transients, tucking them down. Because then right after that, we're going to follow that with the SPL iron. This thing is fantastic. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know I'm on this a lot. And that's got a much slower attack time now. That's just for the overall glue, a little bit of a blanket over everything. Give it a hug, bring it in close, and pull it all together. Plus, we got this air bass switch, which flip that thing, call me later, tell me how much you love it. It adds that top sparkle and that super bottom that you know that I'm chasing, I'm searching for. And, just a skosh of stereo width, just a little mwah, just to spread it a little bit, not a lot, not mwah, just a little bit, and then we got some black box on there. I'll often put a little bit of saturation where there's a tape emulator or something, or like the black box, maybe at the end of my mix bus if I want a little bit more life and pizzazz and everything to my mix, just to give it a little bit of spice on there. So I'm just driving the triode a little bit, just to kind of push the drive kind of the more top end stuff. The triode kind of gets the top end of it a little bit, just to put the finishing touches on. But so that's Born Ready. Vocals again by the incredible Curly Castro out of Philadelphia, part of the Wrecking Crew collective down there. He signed to Backwood Studios, making amazing alternative hip hop. He's one half of Shrapnel and a phenomenal MC. So shout out to Curly Castro. Shout out to Plugin Alliance and all of the plugin designers. They've got some gems in the mega bundle. If you can't find it here, you may not need it. That mega bundle has everything that you need for your mixing, for your production, for all your record making. If you've not subscribed now, go ahead, subscribe to mega bundle. It's worth every cent. It's going to give you everything you need plus a lot more. And you will have this session and these files so you can do your own mix of Born Ready, see what I'm doing, see what you like, see what you don't like. Hopefully very few things you don't like, but tune in, stay tuned in with Plugin Alliance, and stay tuned in with me, your man Willie Green, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Ready like I'm Lance Stevenson, you already ready.